Welcome everyone to the LinkedIn workshop for students. Thank you so much for being here today. I see that we've got, wow, almost 150 people in the room, which is really exciting. I'm just gonna give us 1 minute to make sure that we've got everyone in the room before we officially begin. While we're waiting for that 1 minute, grab your notebook, grab some water, or open a new tab on your laptop, because I will provide you with a ton of information today. You want to make sure to take notes so that way you can make the most of your LinkedIn profile. All right, it looks like we're up to about 160 people. Ooh, even more. And we are going to get started. All right, so again, welcome. I'm your host. My name is Gwen Snyder. I am the Career Success Manager here at 10,000 Degrees. And like I said, today we're going to go through a ton of information about all things LinkedIn. One of the most popular questions that I get asked from my students is, what do I do with my LinkedIn profile? How do I use LinkedIn? And we're going to go through all of that amazing information today. Also, we are recording this presentation today, and it will be available on our 10,000 Degrees YouTube channel if you do want to review certain parts in the future. Also, all of the slides and all of the information that we will be providing today is directly from the good folks at LinkedIn. So really, really great, valuable information straight from them. And lastly, what I know a lot of you are going to wonder about is, how do I get my LinkedIn Premium license? So for those of you that are attending today and stay throughout the duration of the presentation today, we'll get an email from my colleague, Megan Topping, which will include a survey link. Fill out that survey and you're going to get your LinkedIn Premium license. All right, I'm just going to pause there. Looks like we don't have any questions. So let's go to our next slide and let's dig into this. All right, so today we are going to discuss, first of all, what is LinkedIn, especially when we're using so many social media platforms. Where does LinkedIn fit in within all of those platforms and how do we use it? We're also going to discuss defining your professional brand, how to build your professional network, and how to use our network on LinkedIn to connect to other opportunities, whether that's for networking or jobs or internships. And that leads us to how to search for jobs on LinkedIn. And lastly, other ways that we can really maximize LinkedIn. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so first off, there are so many social media platforms. Where does LinkedIn fit in? How is it different? So this graphic shows how we utilize other platforms on social media. Our example is this woman eating a donut, and how we can express her eating a donut through these different platforms. So on Facebook, we might post to our community that we like donuts. And I know that, Facebook is kind of phasing out. And then we have the Snapchat icon here, but I know everybody's all about TikTok. So on TikTok, we can post, watch me eat a donut, how to make a donut, where are the best places to eat donuts. TikTok can really be used for anything, in my opinion. And then Instagram really started, as we know, as like pictures. This is pictures of my donut, right? Me eating my donut, but now it's moved more towards video. We have Pinterest, which might be a good place to pin recipes for donuts, and WhatsApp, which I still use. I don't know if you all still use it, but that might be a place to chat. Does anyone want a donut? Or communicate with folks in general. And Spotify is a place where we can say, this is what I'm listening to, or if we want to listen to songs about donuts. You all get my drifts. These are the different platforms that I know probably a lot of you are using a majority of these. But let's now get into how LinkedIn is a different platform and how you can use it versus the other social media platforms that you use. So let's go on to the next slide. So when we're thinking about LinkedIn as a social media platform, you want to think about LinkedIn as a place to really express your professional mindset. Okay, so basically, if you want to operate a donut franchise one day, if you're looking for a job at a donut company, right? We're continuing with the donut metaphor. Or, some of your top skills. If you've, worked as a baker doing donuts, these are how I produce donuts. This is how many donuts I sell. So when we're thinking about LinkedIn again, it's about your career interests and your career brand. Let's dig into that even more. Next slide. So LinkedIn is an excellent place for you to connect to opportunities. There are millions of employers, as you can see, 55 million plus employers that are on LinkedIn searching for new talent. There are also a lot of working professionals that are on LinkedIn that you can access to, view their profiles and what their experiences are, to contact for an informational interview, etc. It looks like there's over 722 plus million professionals. That's a lot all over the world. And of course, there are many professional groups on LinkedIn where you can expand your network, get to know maybe folks that you wouldn't get to know otherwise, that are maybe connected to your career interests or skills that you want to develop. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. And we're going to talk about our professional brand. I'm just going to pause because I want to check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, is there a check-in for today? No check-in for today. We're just breezing through all of this amazing LinkedIn information. So again, take notes and sit back. I think we're good on the chat. So continuing on, let's talk about your professional brand and how you can express that through LinkedIn. We're going to talk about what makes a good brand, identifying your brand, and also how you can utilize LinkedIn to really show that you're the right choice for either a part-time job, an internship, or a full-time gig. So let's go to the next slide. So what makes a good brand? And they have Apple here, which is a really great example because I am an Apple fan. But a good brand, a brand is a company's promise to its customer. So if we think about Apple as an example, I have a ton of Apple products. I know what to expect from Apple in terms of how it will look, the functionality, how I can use it. I have an idea of what to expect from Apple. I have an Apple laptop, iPhone, etc. It also shows us how it's unique from other competitors, right? So I know how Apple is unique in comparison to an HP, for example, right? It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. I'm going to use it differently. Let me just check the chat here. It looks like, okay, so it looks like everyone is curious about premium. Your premium license that you'll receive is good for 1 full year. All right, let's focus on the content. I will get to questions periodically through the presentation and also at the end. So if you have any questions about this content that I'm going through, feel free to just put it into the chat. There's other general questions, feel free to ask me at the end. All right, so getting back into the professional brand. Yes, let's get into our next slide. So brands are not just for corporations or companies, but they also apply to you. And this is how you can really utilize LinkedIn as a tool. Your brand is something that you can think about as your promise to the professional community. If you think about some of your social media, I think about Instagram as kind of like, this might be what it's like to hang out with me or get to know me, right? You can think about LinkedIn as, this is what it's like to work with me, right? This is my expertise and skills and education, and this is what it's like to be my colleague. Think about LinkedIn that way when you're posting and thinking about your profile, which we're going to get to all of those things. this can show off your work and your specific lens to the work, and why your specific lens is very unique. And just remember that you can shape your brand by what you present on LinkedIn. All right. So showing that you are the right choice. Oops. Yeah, let's go back to that. Yeah, this slide. All right, showing that you're the right choice. So as we know, many companies reference LinkedIn to verify your identity, your work history, your skill set. You know, some companies might Google you. So you want to make sure that you're really showcasing with your LinkedIn profile, your skills, obviously who's in your network, because those are the folks that you're going to connect with, and any other additional information when it comes to who you are professionally on your profile. Let's go to the next slide. And really great things that we can emphasize on LinkedIn that maybe we can't reference in a resume, which I'll get to that in a moment, are your values or your goals. These are other things that you can really enmesh into your profile to showcase to recruiters and employers. So let's go to the next slide. So now we're just going to do a really quick low-key activity. And I want you to think about, as we're thinking about, you know, values or goals or important aspects of you, why don't we just go ahead and put in the chat 3 words that either your friends or a former employer, internship, or job has used to describe you. So take a moment to think 3 words used to describe you. And this is all just kind of brainstorming and thinking about what your brand could be. Ooh, nice. I see them coming in. Fast learning, polite, professional, hardworking, motivated, inclusive, empathetic. These are fire. Excellent. Very, very good, y'all. So this is what I want you to be thinking about. Oh, these are wonderful, passionate, kind. I see a lot of empathetic out there. Amazing. These are the kinds of things that you want to include when you're thinking about your brand and professionally who you are. So fantastic, y'all. Great, thank you. I'm just taking a moment to read these because they're so good. Motivated, responsible, reliable, loyal, consistent. Excellent, excellent. Problem solver. I love that one. Thank you, y'all. These are fantastic. So again, when you are brainstorming your professional brand, think of these words. Think about some of the feedback that you may have received from instructors, your GSIs, former employers, etc. All right. Excellent. We're going to move on to the next slide. Oh, they're still coming in. Thank you all. I see a lot of hardworking, resilient, friendly. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, let's move on to our next slide. Now that we've done some brainstorming here. All right, so again, when we're thinking about LinkedIn, it is a great way to showcase that you're the right person for the job. And as I mentioned, Google searches are more common than not. And what's great about LinkedIn is that if you're using it regularly, it can pop up as one of the first searches in a Google search. And that's exactly what you want. That's what you want to showcase when somebody does a Google search on you or an employer, that you're really showing them that you're the right person for the job because of your professional branding. LinkedIn is, you know, most likely, if you use it on a regular basis, going to be the first one to pop up and really show, right, who you are, where you've worked, etc. So utilize that. I also want to take this time to say, you know, use your best judgment, make good choices when it comes to social media platforms, and not just LinkedIn, but all other ones. Just in terms of employment down the road, you never know. You never know what a Google search might come up with. So make good choices. Make sure that for some of your other social media platforms that they are set to private. You all know what I'm saying here. Do what you need to do to make sure that if someone does search you, LinkedIn comes up or other professional references. and that all those other platforms are private. Yes? All right. Let's pause here. Before we go on to the next slide, I want to pause here and just see if we have any questions. I know that I covered quite a bit in terms of personal branding. That was our first section. Any questions, feel free to put those in the chat now about this branding piece. Yes, because we have such a large group, oh my goodness, over 250 people, you are muted automatically. We're doing a webinar format, but feel free to type whatever you'd like in the chat, or we can unmute you if you'd really like to ask your question. All right, I'm going to continue on. But please don't be shy. Feel free to put in your questions in the chat. I will get to them as soon as I can. And like I said, at the end of this, we're just going to open it up to questions, and I will answer as many questions as possible. So let's continue on. And we're going to go to our next slide. And what we're going to focus on now is how to build your LinkedIn profile. This is one of the #1 questions that I get. How do I even build it? Okay, where do I start? So what we're going to go over is how to set up your account, right? Just LinkedIn 101, how to get on there, set up your account. What is the difference between your profile versus a resume? I get that question all the time. We'll dig into that. What kind of photo you should post and how to edit your profile. All right. Next slide. Okay, so setting up your account is very easy. I know that y'all are downloading apps all the time. This is just another app that you can conveniently download. And you can do so through the App Store, whether on Google or Apple. But you can also just on your laptop or on your computer, go into linkedin.com and start your account that way. Super easy. Next slide. So this is always the big question that I get asked. What is the difference between having a resume and your LinkedIn profile? And there are a ton of very significant differences. So first off, and for a lot of you that have worked with me on your resumes, you know that your resume should be 1 page. And the great thing about LinkedIn is that there are no space constrictions whatsoever. You can write as much as you want, and someone can view all of the different jobs that you've had. And I know that maybe at this point in your career, you've only had a few, but as you continue working, you'll have a ton of jobs to be able to showcase that don't fit on 1 page. So the advantage of LinkedIn is you can show your entire holistic job experience, which is amazing. Also, you can list way more details, of skills. You can add bullet points about projects that you've worked on that, again, maybe you're not going to have room because we know that with a resume, it's just that 1 page. So really go to town there and feel free to describe all of those things in detail, your skills, projects, interests, if there's certifications, and really don't ignore some of those projects that you're working on in college right now. Those demonstrate so many different skills. So I invite you to go to town, and anything else that complements your professional brand. Another key difference is that you can interact with people. LinkedIn is an app. There's a chat feature. It also has a feed that reminds me of, Facebook or a lot of social media platforms where you can see different articles that people are posting. You can also post really anything that you want, events, or if you have questions. So you can interact with people, like their stuff, add them as friends, et cetera, et cetera. And also there is a recommendations and endorsement section, and I need to get better at using it, quite frankly, but where you can ask people to endorse you that you may have worked with. Again, this is getting to the, someone looking at your profile and being able to see what it's like to work with you, to be your coworker, and what your values are in terms of your work. So definitely, you know, recommendations and endorsements and hearing from other people. We don't get that on a resume. All right, let's go on to our next slide. All right, so photos. I also get a ton of questions about photos. So uploading a photo is definitely important because, as we all know, I know that y'all are on different social media platforms. Nobody wants to click on a profile where there isn't a picture, right? It seems weird or shady. So make sure to upload that photo. We definitely want a background that isn't distracting. I love using a plain background. Dress professionally, but you want a majority of the picture, to be your face. So I would really recommend that you don't do any full body shots, but it's really just your face, smiley, friendly, approachable, easy and simple. All right, we're going to go to our next slide. Now we're getting into the profile, the nuts and bolts of the profile, okay? So your profile, you write yourself. So this is your opportunity to tell your educational and professional story in your own words. Again, another really valid difference between, you know, this and a resume. Yes, a resume, you're writing in your own words, but it's a little bit different. I feel like that's more about skills and experience. Here you can go a little bit deeper, which is exciting. So there is a me icon. You can see that in the visual that we have here. And when you click on that me eye contact, that's basically how you open up your profile and can go to town uploading your photo and other important elements, which we're going to get into. You want to add your location. Of course, that's really important. You know, your industry, work and internship experience, of course, volunteer experience, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it will prompt you to fill out all of those sections. And I encourage you to take the time to really thoroughly do that. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But that's how you get started. So let's continue on. Next slide. So another important piece, probably the most important piece to your profile, is your headline. This is another cool thing that your resume doesn't necessarily have. So your headline shows like basically like a one-liner. Some people do it differently. They might put different titles or different phrases in there. But regardless of what you do, it's one line of text that pops up when somebody first searches for you, or when a recruiter looks you up. So you really want to think about, what do those phrases, or what does that one line say? Does this represent who I am as a professional brand? And if a recruiter sees this, what would I want them to know? So when you're thinking about the headline, think about those elements. And I'm on LinkedIn, add me. I might revise my headline, but I'm kind of into it for right now. So you can check out the way that I did mine. And also just looking at other profiles of so many other professionals to get ideas. All right, but make sure to write that headline. I also have some students that just ignore it. Utilize that headline because, again, that's like the first line that people are seeing when they are searching on LinkedIn. Let's go to the next slide. Once you have your headline written, then you can work on your summary. Again, another cool thing that a resume doesn't have. Your summary is where you can write in your own words about your professional brand. I would recommend no more than a paragraph or two. You want it to be brief, and you want it to include these elements: who you are as a professional or a student. I know a lot of y'all are students right now. So what you're majoring in, perhaps, what classes you're taking, what projects you've recently participated in, what gets you fired up about your major, okay? But also if you've had jobs, if you've had part-time jobs or internships as well. So who you are, and then I was already talking about experience, skills, and key passions. And also future goals. And lastly, what are you looking for? How can folks best engage with you? Are you looking for informational interviews right now for I'm going to make this up, for social media roles, like what is your ask? Put that in there as well. So don't sleep on writing a good headline and writing a good summary. And you're going to revise them, every semester or over the years. So don't put so much pressure on like, this is going to be my summary forever. This is going to be my headline forever. No, take a stab at it, and it's going to change just as you change professionally. I am going to pause there before we go on, because I just provided a lot of info. I'm going to check our chat, but let me know if you have any questions about getting onto LinkedIn and opening up your profile, okay? The headline, the summary, any of the pieces that you should edit. Let me know if you have questions. I'm not seeing any. It looks like we are good. This meeting is being recorded, definitely, and it will be on YouTube. Oh, I provide the endorsements from my students. Thank you. I might hit you up for that. All right, we're looking good. We're going to continue on to make sure that we still have time for questions. Is the summary the About You box? Yes, that's correct. Do we need to open a profile, or is it not necessary? Yes, I would say everyone needs a profile. Everyone who's attending in this room today needs a LinkedIn profile. And I know that sometimes in college it might seem like, oh, I'm not using this as much. I invite you to add your instructors, your GSIs, your classmates. We'll get into this more, but definitely open it up and start using it now. Let's see, adding all of my internships through my high school years are still relevant. Yes. So you want to think about your job experience in chronological order. So any employers or if you're looking for an internship, they're going to look at what you've done most recently. So if those are some of your, most recent job opportunities, or if they're most relevant and they're within the past few years, I would definitely add them. All right, I know that there's a few questions in here, and I will get to those, but I want to make sure to get through all of our content. And if I didn't get to your question, I will get to it at the end. I just want to make sure that we get through. All right, so let's continue on. And we're going to talk about, yes, how to build our professional network. How do we even do this? So now we've got our profile, we've got a good picture, we've got our headline and our summary. We filled out to the best of the ability our education and any jobs that we might have. Now what? So basically, you want to start building your network. And you're going to do that by, first of all, discovering existing connections. So it's going to suggest people to you, just as any other social media platform does, right? Like Instagram, it's going to suggest people that you might already know based on your contacts, right? LinkedIn does the same thing. So we want to make sure that you add who you already know, your people, your friends, your colleagues, your classmates, your teachers. Let's get them added. To also search for new connections, because that's really important. That's how we broaden our network and learn. And also being really strategic about who we talk to and how we expand our network. So that's our next section that we're going to go into. Next slide. So 50% of hires result from a personal connection. So basically what this is saying is half of the people that are hired knew somebody at the company. And I know that we all kind of know this or talk about it, but here in the Bay Area, I'm going to guess that this number is even higher than 50%. It might not be, but I'm going to guess, because things here in the Bay Area are very much about referrals. It's very much about who you know. And let me tell y'all that you are getting the great foundational academic knowledge, but what I wish the universities would tell you is that building the relationships are just important. Building the relationships with everyone that you're working with your classmates, because those could be your coworkers later on, and with your instructors too. So it's so important. Someone was asking about, should we have a profile? Should we start here in college? Yes, so that you can add to your network, because it is about who you know. All right, let's go to the next slide. So everyone has a network. I know that we hear the term networking all the time, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? Talking to strangers. Let's break it down. Everyone has a network. What this graphic is showing is that you already have a network and you don't realize it. These are basically any new friends or acquaintances that you meet. People that you directly meet are in your network. Even if you only met them once before, you've met them. They're in your network, they're in your community. So whether it's like a social activity that you're going to, even when we go out at night, that is still networking because we're meeting new people, right? So let's not make it more complicated than it is. Networking is meeting new folks. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, so your network consists of many different strong connections. So you can think of your first degree connections as people that you know well and that you interact with often. So maybe your classmates, maybe if you have a part-time job, if you're doing an internship, those folks, etc. But there's also, weaker connections that are just as important. So when we're thinking about second degree connections, those are people that you share a connection with. So maybe they go to your university, maybe they've worked at your job before, maybe you know someone in common. Those are second degree connections. Third degree connections are kind of even further connections that are connected to the second degree. So it might be a friend of a friend, right? This is where we get into like those degree conversations that were only like 1 degree, right? So keeping that in mind, that's how this works. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, so we see the third degree here. So what's interesting though, is that what research shows is that you'd think that it's going to be the people immediately in my community, like my good friends that are going to help me in terms of informational interviews or referring me to a job. But actually what research shows is that it's all of your connections, and sometimes even the most distant connections are fruitful. So for example, I have a neighbor, her sister works at Amazon. And even though I'm not really good friends with the neighbor, or pardon, with the sister, I can ask the sister and say, hey, I'm interested in working in Amazon. Where's the job board? Oh, that looks cool. Like I'm interested in, I'm making this up. Their computer science or like IT in Amazon. Then that person might say, oh, I know a couple of my coworkers, they work in IT. This is how it happens, y'all. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that like, that's your best friend. It's just that connection of, you're the sister of my neighbor. I know that you work at Amazon. I'm interested. This is what I'm looking to do. And then the sister saying, that's cool. Why don't you talk to these colleagues? It's as simple as that. So don't overcomplicate or overthink. I'm terrible at that. But this is easy. You have to just put yourself out there and write some messages, and we'll get into what that looks like. Let me just check the chat and make sure that you all are okay. The strength of weak ties principle. Yes, this is exactly that. And the art of networking. Because it might not be your BFF, it might be a friend of a friend. And that's an even better tie because they know more people than your BFF, right? So it's making that network larger. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to get into how do we approach people so that it's not awkward, and how do we, write a message? What are folks looking for? So when you find someone that you want to connect with, just like with any other social media platform where you want to add or follow someone, likewise with LinkedIn, and you can basically write a really brief message about your interests, how you found them, who you are, what you're passionate about, and what you're looking to do from that brief meeting with them. All right, and let's go on to our next slide. And we also want to make sure that we start off with, when you're first starting your LinkedIn profile, you want to start with the people that you already know. Don't think that it's not important. Like, oh, I talk to them every day, they're my best friend, or, oh, that's my uncle, I don't need to add him. Add everyone, so that way you can see, you can let the magic of LinkedIn work, which is figure out who these second degree and third degree connections are. It's, the algorithm is going to be off if you don't put in your first degree connection. So there is actually a button on LinkedIn that says My Network. You click on the My Network button and it's going to suggest a lot of people to you based on, and this is where you want to make sure that your profile information is very accurate, because it's going to recommend based on where you've gone to school before, or where you're currently going to school, or again, like, you want to connect with those family members. If there's only any businesses that you might have relationships to, any jobs that you've worked with in the past, it's going to connect to all of that. So make sure that you are adding all of your people so that you can really benefit from this wider network that it will suggest to you. All right, next slide. You can also expand your professional network by just doing searching and being curious. And this is something that I do all the time. So if you're interested in a certain role, you can look up that role. I like to use social media manager as an example because so many of my students are interested in social media and influencing. So you can, type in social media and see what you get. See what roles, see what people come up that are currently doing this work. You can also search by company. Do you have a couple of dream companies? Look that up and see who are some of the people that are currently at that company. Are they in roles that you're interested in? Is that someone that you want to ask for an informational interview and connect with on LinkedIn? You can also see like who's working in the San Francisco Bay Area, or if there's another city that you're interested in. So the search functions are really great. Use them to your advantage. Let's go to the next slide. So we were discussing this a little bit before, but just to follow up with that on how to connect with someone, you want to click on connect and then send invitation, and always include a note, unless you really know that person very, very well and it is your BFF or it is your family member. But if it's someone that you might not know as well, or that you haven't talked to in a while, or an employer for a couple years ago, I would just add a little note here. If it's someone that you absolutely don't know, then absolutely write a note. Again, it's recommended that you add who you are, how you may have met, or who you might mutually know, and what your ask is. Let's go to the next slide. So let's get strategic about expanding our networks. We're going to talk about other folks that you should reach out to, or we've already talked about folks that you should reach out to. Again, people that you have something in common with as far as a career goal or interest or skills. People who have like your dream job, or they're at your dream company. And also people who might be able to connect with you and just answer some of your questions about some of your career goals. And again, what should I say? That's another big question that I get all the time. What do I say in these messages? Again, make it short and sweet. Who you are, how you came across them, or who you might mutually know, and how they can help you, what your direct ask is. So I am going to pause there before we go on to our next section. And let's see if we have any questions about networking. Let's see. Okay, so sometimes I get notifications saying someone's looking at my profile, but I can't see who. Yes, that's very common in LinkedIn. So sometimes, unless they have LinkedIn Premium, or just depending on what kind of profile they have, you won't be able to see them. They might also be like a third degree connection. You might not be able to see them. And that's okay. People are going to look at your profile all the time. It's nothing creepy. Sometimes recruiters are always looking. So it's nothing to be alarmed of. I get those notifications all the time. Should we accept connection invitations from people we don't know? That's an excellent question. So I would say use your best judgment. Take a look at their profile and see who they are. Or you can even respond, send a message and say, how do we, know each other? Try to see if there's a commonality or how they found you. It could be a recruiter. It could be, someone that you went to school with in high school, who knows? But I would do a little bit of digging, looking at their profile in order to make that determination. If it is someone that you no longer want following you, you can always delete them if needed. Let's see. What's a good example of an ask for someone we don't know? We did cover that. So make sure to revisit that. But again, short and sweet, who you are, how you came across their profile, and how they can help you. All right, I'm going to continue on because it's 5:41, so I want to get through the rest of our material. Let's go to the next slide. What we're going to go into now is how we can use LinkedIn to get a job. All right. So again, messaging connections is really, really important. Asking for informational interviews, which we went through, that's another important aspect of really utilizing this tool. Requesting referrals for anyone that you've worked with or worked for. And just, being on LinkedIn, I would say a lot, like an hour a week? You can do that. I know that you're on TikTok a lot longer than that every week. So allot some time to engage and be on LinkedIn. All right, so let's get back into how do we ask for informational interviews, right? That was kind of in the chat box. And what is an informational interview? So an informational interview is to help you gain confidence on your career path and just be really curious. Ask questions, find out what their day-to-day is. If this is a match for you in something that you're interested in. As I always say, sometimes theoretically, it sounds like a career is so cool and that's what we want to do. And we can really ground our understanding in talking to other professionals. Learning about the industry is so important. If there are specific companies that you are interested in, that's a great like entry point to talk to folks that work there. I want to work for your company. These are the reasons why I'm so excited. Who can I talk to? And also as a part of establishing your professional brand, as you're talking to people, a part of informational interviews is you also sharing what you're passionate about and what your professional story is. So it's also good practice for you in establishing who you are and how you deliver this information in your informational interviews as well. And we can see our example here. It's really short and sweet. I'm currently exploring careers in communication. I admire your experience and accomplishments. I'd like to hear more about your career journey, right? Would you be available for a 20-minute chat? And that's what I recommend. I recommend, no more than 20 or 30 minutes for an informational interview. So yeah, it's as simple as that. Let's go to our next slide. Also, you can request referrals. So especially with tech companies, for some of their jobs, they require referrals. They require that you know a couple of people at the company. Hopefully you already know a couple of people at the company because you've been networking and you've been using LinkedIn. But you can also facilitate that by writing a referral. I think this is going to come into play more like when you're a senior in college and when you are thinking about applying to full-time jobs. Let me just see if we have, every time I ask for a referral, I get ghosted. Yeah, that's hard and that's challenging and that happens, unfortunately. So it's like, you got to keep asking or try to ask other folks. I know how difficult and challenging it is. All right. Let me just go to our next slide. You can also request recommendations. And this is something that I'm trying to get better at, but request recommendations from folks that you've already worked with. If you're thinking, oh, it's just a part-time job in retail, that's great. That's wonderful transferable skills and experience. Because again, what we're trying to capture here is what it's like to work with you. What are your skills? How do you interact with customers, for example, if you do retail? I'm just using that example because I did a ton of retail during college. But those recommendations are so important to showcase your responsibility. Again, who you are, what you demonstrate on the job. And sometimes we get shy about asking for these things. So I think as you're leaving a role, even again, a part-time job, that's where you can ask and you can do it through LinkedIn. Yeah, even people that you've worked with, it doesn't necessarily have to be a manager. It can be former colleagues that you worked with, your coworkers. All right, let's go on to the next slide. You can make the most out of this network, like I said, by allotting time out of your week for LinkedIn. And this is something that I personally do because I love Instagram. I'm obsessed with Instagram, but I know that I need to allot some time to LinkedIn so that it can really work for me. We all know algorithms, right? So make those algorithms work for you in terms of, you know, commenting on certain posts that may apply to the different careers that you're interested in, interacting with certain people, following certain folks, reading certain articles on LinkedIn. That's all going to help LinkedIn provide you with more information that you're looking for in that realm. Again, like liking and sharing items, just being on LinkedIn and engaging is so powerful. And also joining groups. There's a lot of groups on LinkedIn. We actually have, this is a plug, a 10,000 Degrees alumni group that all of you should join. I would say, you know, junior, senior year, you can join now if you want, but especially your junior and senior year as you're starting to think about full-time employment. I am posting jobs in that LinkedIn group all the time that we receive. You don't want to miss out on those. There's also other groups. I would invite you to join wherever you're going to college, join that group, so that you can connect with other folks that are going to your school or other opportunities. So definitely utilize that. And like I was saying, give recommendations to others or testimonials, help others, and they will probably help you as well. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to go through this quickly because I see that we have 10 minutes left and I really want to get to your questions. So there are a few other pieces to this presentation, but I'll go through some of the most important. And this is basically how to find a job. I know that a lot of you all have that question. So you can utilize what's really cool about LinkedIn, and what I also like about Premium is that you can show recruiters that you're open to work on your profile. Recruiters will contact you, especially if they see that you're open to job opportunities. You can create job alerts. This is another one of my favorite aspects of LinkedIn. You can create job alerts for certain job titles, and it will alert you on your phone and you can respond to them really quick, because I think we all know that for any internship or full-time job, once it opens, you got to get in there and apply before hundreds of other people do, right? So job alerts are so helpful. There's also different search alerts that you can set, like I said, in terms of, you know, different jobs, different companies, etc. You can also, like I was mentioning, follow the schools that you attend, or if you're, you know, hoping to be an educator, you can follow schools that you're interested in working at as an educator. Let's go to the next slide. You can show recruiters that you're open to work. Again, we went over some of this information in terms of like job titles, locations that you're interested in. If you have a dream city like New York City where you want to move, you can check out those jobs and have alerts as well. Let's actually stop the slideshow. The rest of those slides was really more strategies about how to find jobs. I'm happy to answer those questions. I feel like some of the most important parts in terms of how to network and how to create your profile are what we covered today, and that was the most important for you all. But let me get to your questions in our last 8 minutes before we close. So let's get to these questions here. Oh, the group on LinkedIn, oh, I don't have it linked in front of me, but it is the 10,000 Degrees alumni group. Yes, thank you, Han. There's our 10,000 Degrees alumni group. Feel free to join that. Even if you're a freshman or a sophomore, I didn't mean to exclude you all, but you can definitely join. But I think especially for juniors and seniors that are like really looking to line up that that full-time first real job, that will be helpful for you too. So get in there, add that. And at this time, please fill the chat with your questions. I think that there's also a raise your hand feature where we can unmute you if you want to ask more questions. I hope this was helpful. I hope that all of you will be opening up your LinkedIn profile if you don't already have one. Get your profiles ready, start uploading your picture, filling out all of that information so that you can start adding your network. Any questions? I am going to give it a few minutes so that you can chat, or you can think about it, and also chat in the chat box. Oh, let's see. Is there some? Oh, there's Q&A here. Okay, so let me start here looking at the Q&A. Do you have to be in the 10,000 Degrees program to join the alumni group? Yes, you do. So that is for 10,000 Degrees scholars that are a part of our program. But I also invite you, if you're not a part of 10,000 Degrees, to be a part of your school, wherever you're attending. Let's say it's College of Marin, Santa Rosa Junior College. They probably have alumni groups that you can join as well. So don't be deterred by that. All right, I'm just trying to go through these questions as quickly as possible. What would you ask for an informational interview? So we did go over that. 20 or 30 minutes wasn't enough, but any longer, a little bit awkward. Okay, so informational interviews. Yes, I do recommend that you do 30 minutes. If you feel like there's still more to say, this is where you develop the relationship with that person and say, you know what, this has been so interesting. I have more questions. Can we do another 30-minute informational interview in next week or in a couple weeks? This is building the relationship again. So Amanda, I'm seeing your question. I would continue doing what you're doing, but set up that second informational interview. Really make that person a part of your network. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Yes, someone is asking, can we reach out to you later if you have any questions regarding, if we have questions? Yes, I know I didn't get to some of the job search info, which my apologies. Maybe we'll do a part 2 next year in 2022 to go over more of that. But yes, you can email me. Let me put my email in the chat, or it's gsnyder@10,000degrees.com. Maybe my colleague will type it in for me. So feel free to email me. I'm open to meeting with you and discussing that. All right. How do I renew my LinkedIn profile after the year ends? So your LinkedIn profile it's free. We are providing you a LinkedIn Premium license, which gives you even more functionalities. So you can really utilize the job search functionality, which we didn't go over a whole lot today, but we can go over next time, where it can really suggest different jobs to you. Another really cool thing about LinkedIn Premium is that there's a LinkedIn Learning platform where you can pretty much do self-paced learning, and you can take courses on whatever you want, and it will show up on your LinkedIn profile, which I really like. It kind of is like a merit badge or whatever, but it will show up in your LinkedIn profile of these different courses that you've taken through LinkedIn Learning. So I think that's really cool. Like if there's jobs that you want to go for, but you feel like, oh, I don't necessarily have some of these skills, I bet you LinkedIn Learning is going to have a course that will teach you the skills. So that's another really cool thing about LinkedIn Premium. So to back up, LinkedIn is free for everyone to use. Your profile will be good for as long as you want to use it, but LinkedIn Premium just gives you many more functions that you can use on your profile, and that what we're giving you will last one full year. Once that expires, you're still on LinkedIn, you just don't have access to some of these other special functions. All right, I'm kind of going all over the place because there's a lot of questions. Should we include all the jobs that we did during college, even if those jobs weren't related to our major? I would say yes. Remember, the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is you can include everything, all the jobs that you've ever had. And I think as a student, that's really powerful because it's showing all, all of the different skills and experiences that you have, which it might not just be about your major. You may have done something else. I think that's great to show that you're multifaceted. So I would say yes, include all of the jobs. It also helps you remember, because I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you're going to have a lot more jobs. So it's going to help you remember, what you did and some of the skills that you learned in those jobs. And also, you never know what you're going to apply to in the future. You never know if there's a job that might, where that part-time job, or you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I should list this. You never know if there's a job that you might apply for in the future where that experience will be relevant. So I would say include everything. All right. And so, yes, I'm seeing that there's a couple of these similar questions. I think I worked 3 retail jobs while I was at UC Berkeley, y'all. So I get it. I would list those jobs. Don't discount your part-time jobs. I did so much retail, and a lot of that was really transferable in terms of like the skills that you're learning. Cash handling, working with so many different customers. There's so much to these part-time jobs, and I'm happy to like work with you to flush that out a little bit more. But yes, I would absolutely include that. I think one of the number one things that employers are looking for is just customer service ability, depending on the job. And some of these part-time jobs are really going to demonstrate that. So yes, 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 include it. All right, I know that we're at 6 o'clock. I'm going to answer just a couple more questions if you'll bear with me. I'm seeing that everyone's sticking with me, so I'm going to answer a couple more, and then we can all have dinner and enjoy our evenings. All right. Is it possible to get an internship without experience? Yes. But I would say what sets you up for that are if you volunteered before, if you've taken maybe some courses or just demonstrated in some way, some knowledge or skills. Some internship, it also depends on the internship, because I feel like some internships have some requirements. Other internships are super open and just want to know that you have the passion and commitment. So it really depends. It depends on the internship. And if you don't have any experience and it's something that you feel like is hindering you getting other jobs, volunteer. I know volunteering, it's like, it doesn't necessarily pay. I'm not saying volunteer forever. I'm saying volunteer to really skill build and use that on your resume so that you can get the next job. And volunteer for something that you really believe in. All right, I'm going to answer one more question, but there's so many. We're going to have to do another session, y'all, so that obviously you all have a lot of interest. So we'll work on that on my end, is getting another session and going deeper into using LinkedIn to find a job. I'm going to answer one more though. A lot of questions about should we list all jobs? So we took care of that. The YouTube channel, if you look up 10,000 Degrees, you will find us. And there is a playlist called Career Success, and you can see all of the different webinars that I've done. It's a lot of me talking, but a lot of good information. We cover a lot of different industries. We cover resumes. So look us up on YouTube. Let's see. Should you have everything on your resume on LinkedIn? So I'm going to cover this last question and then we'll end. And thank you all so much for bearing with me. Usually I don't do events like this where I'm just talking at you, but it's so much content. So I hope this was helpful. But yes, I would include everything on your resume on LinkedIn. And remember, LinkedIn invites us to provide so much more. There's that summary paragraph. There's your photo. There's the headline, recommendations, any other credentials. So I would urge all of you in this room, I know y'all are in college, projects that you're working on. That is such a great way to demonstrate some skills that are relevant to some of these internships or jobs that you might be going for. So yes, include everything on your resume plus everything else that we talked about. Like go to town, add details, work on your summary, make sure that it's cohesive and short and sweet, work on that headline. So yes, and with that, we are going to close. Let me just look at the chat here. I'm getting a lot of thank yous and I appreciate it. Thank you all. My goodness, we had about 250 people at our height in the room. That is the largest webinar that 10,000 Degrees has ever hosted. I thank you all so much for being here. We are going to do a part 2. Get into your LinkedIn profiles and get active, y'all, before you forget. And remember that you will receive an email from Megan Topping. It will have a survey. Come on, we need some data points from you all. Fill out that survey and you'll get your LinkedIn Premium license. And if there's anything else that you want to tell us on that survey, like I want to hear more, I want Gwen to do a part 2, tell us that. All right. And with that, I thank you all so much. It's time for dinner. It's time to get on with our evenings. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.